You're listening to Nap It, Nestor and Pilgrim in the Tumult, an altered TCG podcast. Oneiroi, you earless, eyeless dreams of ours, help! Today, Pilgrim and I spent hours dodging about amidst a herd of Bisalmon, these crosses between bison and salmon that were absolutely out of their mind with fear. There was a flood of them that stretched as wide as the northwest horizon. These flatlands of salt grass have almost nowhere to shelter from such a wall of hopping, horning, and bellowing bodies. I did eventually come across some stone ship graveyard in the middle of a grassless clearing. These boats must have been carved from boulders, or were ships on which gray and wind-abraded rock grew like coral. The wind howled through them and held this unison chord of pessimism in the air, like the wind section of some orchestra that the conductor forgot to turn off at the lowest point of a song about emptiness. As the herd cleared through, I altered 2 pebbles of stone to block my ears and hung from one of 3 tails belonging to a mermaid figurehead. After what had to have been yet another hour, the herd thinned and then died out altogether. I found 2 ideas in that place. The first was purpose depends on context. We know that there must be at least one wanting thing, one sentient thing, to be the thing that gives purpose. But even if you have the purpose giver and the purpose receiver, you still have to have the context that propagates the want or the need. Boats aren't useful in a featureless grassland, not as boats. The second was constancy suppresses meaning. That single ghostly chord was unchanging. There was no variety in it. The wind was steady, and from the same direction from the time I arrived to the time I left. What meaning can one take from something that has always been and always will be? I did not adjust the first idea, but I did tweak the second from constancy suppresses meaning to meaning is built on static truths, which involved changing the chord to an optimistic one. It's untrue that something immutable cannot propagate a lot of meaning. In fact, science requires fundamental laws to be unchanging to derive knowledge. We know that before the tumult, we had a set of physical laws that were reliable at certain scales. Those laws are probably still true enough, despite the chaos wrought by the tumult. Now we have new things we need to learn about: aether, quintessence, and mana. Look at me, talking about technical stuff like that. You'd think I was part of the Izmir, the poet consul Himitsu's faction. The Asgarthans are preparing celebrations. They have several ahead of them. There is the big celebration of the Solstice Gate opening ceremony, where the only gate along the whole of the rampart will be opened for those brave souls of the rediscovery endeavor to exit Asgartha en masse to explore the tumult. It will be the first time in 2 or 3 centuries the gate has been opened. There is the season of jousts, which is now underway, and the prodigum, which will follow the Solstice Gate opening ceremony, and certainly will be a most exciting event. Afghan's rediscovery endeavor has painted all of Asgartha with the feeling that they are living through a historical event. 8 Ringby records were broken this season, and there are rumors that all but 3 Alt-Run records have been broken in training. The Omnium will be exciting to attend this year. Everyone is trying so hard everywhere right now, whether they are leaving Asgartha or staying. The people feel inspired. There is a faction tournament being staged prior to the Solstice Gate opening ceremony. All 6 factions have raised a champion, an exalt from their faction who will be headed into the tumult with the rediscovery endeavor. These 6 champions will compete for the glory and standing of their faction. It is a thing for morale, and to give Asgarthans somewhere to direct their attention and energy as they wait. It shows good leadership to do something like this, I think. To understand the restlessness of a people doing a hard and risky thing like this, and to find a way to channel it safely. It has not yet been made clear to the public how these heroes will compete, and I'm not quite sure it has been made clear to the champions either. Sigismar, the champion raised from the Ordis faction, has not let anything slip into the Gestalt, and, I understand, has mostly closed himself off as the day approaches. It is interesting that he was selected as Ordis's champion. He is certainly a talented alterer, and him and his griffin chimera, Wingspan, are up to the task. He is not well regarded generally, however, and is used to solitude, which is unnatural for most Ordis. It is because he lives in the shadow of his ancestors. He is the direct descendant of Aegis, the 3rd Kunagas of Asgartha, who started his reign just fine, but ended it in reported madness after having shifted the attention of the country to military preparations which potentially planted the seeds for the 3 wars that would follow his reign. Aegis' legacy stood in front of Sigismar throughout his early life. His formative years were challenging and lonely. Sigismar has, in a minor but meaningful way, overcome that legacy in the small circle of his peers and his regiment. Most of Asgartha still knows him through the lens of Aegis, and he is a risky choice for Ordis. If he turns bad, like his ancestor king, Asgarthans may begin to see Ordis as an extension of Aegis' reign. They are the faction of order in Asgartha. They are deeply associated with the Aegis, Asgartha's police force, the Libra, Asgartha's judiciary, and generally the bureaucracy of state. They are good at what they do, and most of Asgartha recognizes the importance of order, especially when they can so easily look out over the rampart to see the alternative. But if that apparatus begins to turn down a dark path... But it is encouraging at the same time. This is Ordis taking a chance on Sigismar. It is a notable honor, and will cast him in a positive light and equip him with a distinction that can be held proudly and separately from his family. Let's hope he doesn't sour in time like Aegis. An unsurprising champion for the faction tournament is the exalt Tasia and Nara of the Muna. Tasia and her chimera Nara, a giant fox, are dedicated. For a long time now, the 2 of them have been fighting off the Fane, a tumult singularity of encroaching darkness that seems only to spew negative ideas into the world. She is a personal hero of mine, because she works with ideas in quite a similar way to me. Instead of infusing them or removing them from places like I do, she plants or cuts them from living things. I have my own reservations for doing that so directly, because of philosophical viewpoints on a person's right to choose who they are and who they become, but it's undeniable how talented Tasia and Nara are, and they're out there on the beach of the Fane doing great work. The Muna and Bravos teams fighting back the Fane will be sad to lose her, I am sure, but the rediscovery endeavor will be safer in the tumult with her. The Izmir are sending their young genius Acacia and her chimera Taru. Acacia has been studying idomancy, one of the 5 spheres of the Nali. Idomancy is the practice of invoking ideas with effigies. Actually, I wonder if the Izmir have bound any of you, Oneiroi. That could explain why you aren't responding to me. It might take more than simple alteration. Maybe one needs a strong enough effigy and a deep understanding of idomancy to bring forth an Oneiroi. If that's the case, I'll find Acacia, or maybe her mentor, the dissenter, Kuat Vasanti, and I'll get an Asgarthan's help to pull you across the veil to facilitate a two-sided conversation instead of this one-sided monologue I find myself in. I obviously hope that's not the case. I hope you can hear me without an effigy, and I hope that I can eventually convince you to visit me yourself and to lend a hand with my journey and my city and the tumult. Acacia is a good pick for the faction. She's skilled in at least 3 of the 5 Nali spheres, idomancy, horomancy, and with Taru's octopus tentacles, she can perform feats of kinemancy that most Izmir can't. Plus, this was a way to celebrate something with her beloved and ill sister Kumari, whom she will have to leave behind in Asgartha. I am sure Acacia will dedicate her efforts to Kumari. Arak and Kibble for Lyra make a lot of sense. Arak is a performer and a spotlight addict who truly becomes herself on stage. Kibble is weird, like all Lyra are, an erratic cat-rabbit soap bubble of a thing. I am sure there was some fierce jockeying among Lyra exalts to become the champion raised out of the 9 tribes to represent the whole. In fact, I think there was likely more competition between the 9 matriarchs of Lyra to have their tribe represented. Oh, the Lyra. What a chaotic pile of ego, chaos, and sabotage. But it's no surprise that Arak and Kibble are the ones. Strong personality, talented, powerful, and simply so ready to seize opportunity when it presents itself. She has confidence, like a mountain has rock. I've mentioned, even if just briefly, those 4 factions before. I haven't talked about the next 2. Axiom is the newest faction in Asgartha. Founded only 49 years ago. They build stuff. They're engineers and workers, and what I love about them is that they are trying to raise the quality of life for everyone in Asgartha. They are trying to make alteration more accessible to people by encoding machines with the Kalo alphabet, which allows people to execute pre-programmed scripts of alteration. They've selected the exalt Sierra and Oddball. Sierra was born into a nomadic Lyra tribe. People aren't always destined for the faction of their parents. She was born into that tribe and moved around with her father Ephron, who would put on traveling shadow theater shows. While traveling the peninsula of Asgartha, a tumult singularity formed and took her legs. That did not stop her. She found the Axiom, received grafted legs, and built a drone that became her chimera and is now Axiom's exalt for the upcoming faction tournament. More than that, though, she has found something beautiful in the Axiom way of life. Purpose, flourishing, and fulfillment. She is a solid representative of Axiom. Visually, she looks the part. Her legs are as part of Axiom as they are of her. I'm certain she will showcase something in the faction tournament which will wow Asgartha. The Axiom always do that. I think they feel like they have to. They're constantly trying to prove themselves and prove their cause. Seems odd that they have to. Make life better for everyone should be an easy message to get behind. I guess even Asgarthans have not overcome the human impulse to be better than others. The Axiom have done a good job of championing their cause either way. Even the change-wary Ortis have begun to accept Axiom's inventions into their places and policies. A library lantern now, a construct child tomorrow. I wonder if something like that has ever been said behind closed doors, deep in the heart of the Foundry, Axiom's bastion. Ah, bravos. Last like they never are. A faction of independent heroes of excellence, growth, and freedom. They have put forth Kojo and Buddha as their faction tournament champion. He is an alt-run expert and, I am sure, will be a star both in the tournament and in the tumult. Kojo is no stranger to competing in front of crowds, and in the crowd at the faction tournament, I am sure his old Jusaka Blaze clubmates, Uju, Kathal, Carmela, and Galt, will all be there to cheer him on the same way he was cheering them on the year they won the Omnium tournament during the season of jousts, when he was stuck in the stands. Here is a poem about Kojo, written by Esteban, the fourth poet consul to Bravos. Verge. Kid's got fastness, destined for the vastness with his fire cat and this drive to surpass limits, to win it, the race that began 348 years ago. Look at him. With cheers he goes and goes and goes. Why do I feel the urge to follow? Esteban, fourth poet consul to Bravos, 389 AC. About Kojo, a kid destined. If the faction tournament is an alt-run competition, Kojo and Buddha, a flaming cheetah chimera, will be the favorite to win by a mile. If it's not an alt-run competition, though, I'm putting my money on... What is that? It looks like a mountain range moving in this direction. Is that what the Bisalmon were running from? Oh, Oneiroi. It's a Leviathan. Thanks for listening to Nap It. If you would like to engage with others on this episode or participate in altered events such as deck building contests, tournaments, or our very own Kalan May, consider joining the Pilgrim's Nest Discord, linked in the show notes. If you liked this episode, please share it with the first person you think of when I say the word Bisalmon, or with whoever. Script, performance, and audio engineering by Justin Hicks. Produced by Justin Hicks. Special thanks to Yoshiaki Mamura, Altered's lore master, and to Equinox for bringing Altered TCG across the veil and into our world. And an extra special thanks to you for listening.